The dawn is just right in front of us, and we're here bright and early on Breakfast Central. It's Tuesday, day 2, and voila, we are alive and kicking. I'm Joe Hansen, welcoming you to another day filled with spectacular stories and so much more.
And I am Osaogi Ogbonwa. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching us here in Nigeria, outside the country, and of course those of us who are joining us on YouTube, good morning to you and thanks for the next 2 hours, of course, of your time. We, of course, have the biggest stories coming your way across Nigeria and in bits and pieces across the continent also. The country is still mourning the death of Herbert Wigwe, and of course conversations still continue on his legacy and, you know, the phenomenal person that he was, and of course the impact that he made in Nigeria's financial institution, you know, space. But aside that, other things that will come up in the conversations today, and we're excited to talk about them. Remember, you can join the conversations. You can call our phone numbers when those lines are open, or send us a message via our social media handles at News Central TV. We also have breakfast headlines. Adebola Adeduba will bring in that for us. Good morning, Adebola.
Good morning, Osaogi and Joe. Happy Tuesday to you both. How are you doing this morning?
I really love your pinstripe suits. Very nice. Keeps you looking elegant, by the way. I hope you heard what I said. I said I love your pinstripe suits.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice. Yeah, elegant.
Thanks.
Well done.
And we all have a touch of blue this morning.
Fantastic yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. Anyway, we're expecting breakfast headlines from you in a bit, but before that, is there a story that you've seen in the last 24 hours that has, you know, caught your attention?
Well, okay, aside, the death of the Chief Executive Officer of Access Holdings, Herbert Wigwe, it's got to be the ultimatum given by NLC to the federal government regarding the hike in the cost of living in Nigeria. And they are saying that, you know, they are likely to demand for up to ₦1 million as minimum wage because of the policies of the government, economic policies of the government, not favorable to the average Nigerian. I'm really, you know, looking at how this pans out, you know, in terms of the strike, you know, the strike coming up, what the federal government will do, and also if there will be negotiations as to increasing the minimum wage. So yeah, that's got to be the story.
A lot of people have described it as unrealistic, asking for 1 million naira. I'm not sure how true that is, if Joe Ajero actually did say that. But, you know, many people have said it is unrealistic. But, you know, the government, of course, you know, has an April date for, you know, a new minimum wage. So we actually, fingers crossed, we want to see, you know, what their deliberations will be like. There's still, of course, you know, a little bit of controversy over the 500 million naira or 1 billion naira that was set aside for the inauguration, you know, the setup of the minimum wage committee by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. So these are bits and pieces of the controversy that have surrounded the whole national minimum wage or new minimum wage conversation. And I want to see how it turns out. Eventually, will, you know, the government approve a 1 million naira minimum wage from 30,000 naira? That would be a phenomenal shift, and I don't expect that will happen.
But we know that's we know that's absolutely impossible, especially at this time.
Well, though it appears outrageous from 30 all the way to ₦1 million naira, but then one thing I know for sure is definitely the minimum wage has to be increased. Looking at the cost of living, the prices of, you know, goods, services, commodities in Nigeria may not be as much as $1 million in terms of the minimum wage. But definitely there has to be negotiations as to increasing, you know, what it was before. Things have changed in the markets as regards to costs.
I mean, Adebola, we agree it needs to be reviewed, no doubt, upwards. But what we cannot certify or clarify is that it must be moved from 30,000 to 1 million naira. We're talking about a huge difference here. However, we also tried reaching out to Joe Ajero yesterday, and there were some, in quotes, statements from his camp saying that he never said that.
Yeah.
Just yesterday evening, I mean, from Breakfast Central, we tried reaching and trying to clarify. Sorry, did you say this? Can you come? And like, no, we never said that. So we wonder where the other media outlets got that information from. But then again, in the course of the show, we'll get to find out where
I want to just quickly mention, you know, one of the fears that I've heard or concerns that I've heard is, you know, regardless of what figure you're moving the minimum wage to, 45, 50, 60, 100,000, we're talking about it on a federal government level. There's private companies that may not be able to afford that. And so there's, issues with the inflation that will come with it, with the fact that states can't even afford to pay the 30,000 naira currently. Imagine then having them, need to pay 100,000 naira minimum wage. And also, private businesses they're shutting down. You don't expect that they would increase, to 100,000, for example, minimum wage. So these are some of the things that I believe that with the deliberations would have to deal with, after that 500 million naira inauguration happens. But Adebola, we'll see you in a few minutes. Let's quickly share with our viewers this morning what our top stories are.
Today on Breakfast Central, Nigeria and the rising insecurity challenges is a conversation we are still going to have.
And President Tinubu insists on improving Nigeria's food production.
Okay, let's see how that goes. What Nigerians are saying, what are you saying from the comfort of your home? Keypad warriors and the likes.
And also, Emefiele witness makes shocking revelation in court, of course, as his trial continues.
And we'll also bring to you the front pages of the newspapers this morning on a Tuesday. Stay with us. It's Breakfast Central, Breakfast Headlines next.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines here on News Central TV. I am Adebola Adeduba. We begin the news in West Africa, Nigeria, where the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, Joe Ajaero, has said that if the ongoing inflation continues, organized labour might push for a new minimum wage of up to 1 million naira for Nigerian workers. Ajaero said the demand for the organized labour would be influenced by the cost of living, which has been increasing since President Bola Tinubu assumed office, notably due to the removal of fuel subsidy and other policies. The Nigeria Customs Service has intercepted 52 units of elephant tusks in Mfom, a border town of Ikom local government area of Cross River. The area controller of Cross River Akwa Ibom Command of NIS, Ahmed Waziri, said this at a news conference in Calabar on Monday. Waziri says the arrest was made by the operatives of the NIS in Mfom on Thursday, adding that the tusks weighing 200 kilograms were valued at 300 million naira. And now to some health matters. The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has approved 105 applications for the construction of new drug manufacturing facilities across the country. According to NAFDAC Director General Mojisola Adeyeye, 35% of the approved facilities have already been built and are at various stages of registration. She says over 20 newly registered local drug companies have together invested over $2 billion in WHO compliance plans to produce quality medicines for Nigerians. The head of the military regime in Niger Republic, Abdurrahman Giani, has talked about the possible creation of a common currency with Burkina Faso and Mali, calling it a step out of colonization. He spoke in an interview on Nigerian national television. Giani has not given details on the possible circulation of a future currency. And still in the region, wives of the Liberian soldiers set up roadblocks near the capital, Monrovia, forcing President Joseph Boakai to cancel National Army Day celebrations. The women were airing multiple grievances, ranging from low salaries and pensions to a lack of social security, electricity shortages, and corruption within the armed forces. They also demanded the resignation of the new defense minister, Prince Charles Johnson III, who they blame for a reduction in salaries of Liberian soldiers returning from peace missions in Mali. In Central Africa, DR Congo authorities on Monday stepped up security outside embassies and UN buildings after they were targeted by protesters accusing the West of supporting M23 rebels in the East. On Saturday, embassy and United Nations vehicles were targeted by demonstrators. The head of the UN's MONUSCO peacekeeping mission, Bintou Keita, said on X, formerly Twitter, that several of its vehicles had been set ablaze. When I head to South Africa, where the country's leading opposition party said on Monday it had asked authorities to charge the country's deputy president with corruption, upping pressure on the ruling party ahead of general elections. The deputy president, Paul Mashatile, has for months been at the center of media investigations, alleging he benefited from luxury properties made available to him by son-in-law and others in return for help securing tenders and other favors. And that's a wrap on Breakfast Headlines. It's back to Osaoge and Joe.
All right. Thank you very much. Debola, interesting stories there. And of course, like one of the things we spoke about earlier, as we seek clarity on the Nigerian Labour Congress's stance concerning the new minimum wage. I think these conversations, of course, need to be expanded, so we can know exactly what is possible and, what, we shouldn't even bother with. The Nigerian government is, having an April timeline to, of course, bring forth the new minimum wage according to what they are saying. We don't know what figures they're going to be working with. We're hoping that some of it is going to be achievable. But like I said earlier, my two major concerns is how possible it is for the government to pay that new minimum wage. How possible will it be for private businesses to pay that minimum wage? Because a lot of them are struggling with the current economic realities. Not very many people have been able to increase salaries, even with the hardship that Nigerians are dealing with, and of course the increase in the price of goods and services across the country. I don't know that many people that increase salaries, and so if you then ask that increased minimum wage, it's going to be almost impossible for them to cope. These are some of the things, and of course inflation that comes with it also. These are some of the things I believe that must be spoken about or must be x-rayed clearly before we know what steps to take going forward.
Absolutely, Osaoge. I mean, these are conversations we need to have in terms of, even beyond the minimum wage, probably a look at the underlying factors affecting inflation. What are the factors driving the rise in prices of goods and services? Yes, they may increase the minimum wage, to help cushion the hardship or alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians. But then, beneath the surface, I think they need to address what exactly is happening to our economy as regards the hike or spike in prices of goods and services. That, to me, will be the lasting solution. But yeah, hey, in the interim, yes, have a review of the minimum wage. So, yeah.
Anyway, for me, it's just trying to have a mental picture of the minimum wage against the livelihood of a citizen, or talk about a civil servant. So let's say the minimum wage will be increased. I'm saying it from my heart, so let it be that I said it on the show, Breakfast Central. I'm actually thinking it will be increased to about 70,000 naira, between 70 and 100,000 naira. So let's just put it at 100,000. That's my thought, though. That's my thought. That's my personal thought. So let's put it at 100,000 naira. A bag of rice goes for 77,000 naira. Okay. If we're going to do a quick calculation and say, okay, possibly a family head will not be able to buy a bag of rice for the family, so it's possibly going to go for half of that bag of rice, and that's going to be 38,500 naira. So if you take away 38,500 naira, this morning, let's do a bit of calculation this morning. I think it helps us. He's left with 61,500 naira out of 100,000 naira, so he's left with 61,500 naira. The kids might want to eat egg. By the way, egg is getting to. I saw a crate of egg yesterday from a particular popular brand. They now sell it for 5,200, while others on the streets, the normal streets, they sell it for 4,000 naira, 4,200, 4,000 naira. So if he's going to buy eggs and he's going to buy, remember there are toiletries. There's also food stuff in the market because they have to eat for the entire month. Let's peg that at 45,000 naira. So if you take away 45,000 naira, I mean, is just possibly saying this house owner will be left with nothing less than about 15,000 plus.
Honestly,
we've
Joe,
not had a transport to work, to and fro. So, and
that's why I agree with Adebola that there's economic concerns that need to be addressed. No matter how much you increase the minimum wage, what you are simply trying to do is make it maybe a little more convenient for Nigerians to afford the current economic realities. But it might be better that you tackle those economic realities and make life more bearable, because you didn't even mention healthcare. You didn't mention house rent.
Absolutely.
And these are things that Nigerians have to pay for.
Rent.
Petrol also. With petrol currently selling for more than 600 naira a litre. So these are things that Nigerians have to afford. Aside bread and rice and eggs, there's so much more. If you look at the way that your finances have changed in the last 6 months, I am bleeding out. And I've continued to say it in a subtle way on air every morning, that I know what I'm having to deal with every day. I know what my realities are. Listen, I wake up one morning and realize that I've blown through 500 to 700,000 naira in 3 weeks. And it's not like I've invested in some, major thing. I'm just using this as an example, but you just realize that it's gone. 10 here, 5, 20, 70, it's just gone.
For the car.
Yes.
In a month, about 120.
And this is on my, level. You can even call me extravagant, but there's people who don't even earn half of what I earn, as tiny as my salary is.
Honestly, it's
that, of course, have to deal with these realities also. So, listen, if you give Nigerians better affordable health care, give them good roads to drive in, give them, 24 hours electricity, give them security, give them, agriculture and security so that they can go to their farms, a lot of these things, the burden on the Nigerian life would be reduced drastically. And so you wouldn't necessarily be thinking of, I need to give 100,000 naira minimum wage or anything. So, I feel like we're going in circles, and we never really achieve much with these conversations.
Just to quickly add to your train of thought, Joe, you just to add to your family items of foodstuff, you didn't add bread. Bread is now a luxury item. Slice of bread you get family size that used to go for, let's say, 900 naira, is now strolling across 1,000, 1,213. It's crazy.
1,350. By the way, I bought yesterday 1,350.
It's a luxury item now. Bread that used to be for the common man is like, is a luxury item now.
You're talking about bread at 900 naira. That bread used to be 300 naira.
It's going for about, let's say, 1,500 to 2,000 naira. When you look at all of those costs, and then you have noodles skyrocketing in price, just a tiny sized noodles, going for about 200, 250, then, it leaves you wondering what's left as your take home, when you get your salary, what's left for you to live by. It's nothing to write home about. I just hope things are, addressed as soon as possible. And this astronomical hike in prices of items on the markets can really go down.
It's actually insane. I forgot to mention school fees. Parents need to pay also.
Deborah had said that. We've not had school yet to that as well, that calculation. And talk about, all of these things we're saying, we have not even mentioned if the family is a family of 5. Husband, wife, 3 children. Or husband, wife, and 5 children. We're slowly pushing. We're being pushed out of the corner, the safety corner where we used to be, and it's starting to look like, it used to be normal, but it's no longer normal. And Nigerians are still watching. I spoke to someone and they're still saying, is it really so? Maybe it will be better. So there's this maybe in the air, but realities are starting to set, and everybody starts to say, okay, and we don't know where it's going to take us to. But then again, we're just waiting. Hopefully, it changes anytime soon. Thank you so much, Deborah, for joining us, and we look forward to see you again at 9 a.m.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, so we've had these conversations and much more. Don't forget, you can be part of the conversation. You can tweet us at News Central TV, or better still, get your phones ready and out, recharged and full, to indeed call in and let's know what your thoughts are, especially when we bring to you the major stories in a bit. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, it's time for our top stories.
Welcome once again. Nurses under the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, NMCN, are protesting the new verification certification guidelines released by the council. The protest, which was being carried out at the NMCN's office in Yaba, Lagos, is seeking the verification of certificates to foreign nursing boards and councils must possess 2 years post-qualification experience. News Central's Omolola Ololade has more for us.
Chanting solidarity songs and carrying placards that read, "Let the nurse breathe," and "No to verification rules." The National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, Lagos State Chapter, expressed their dissatisfaction over the new verification guidelines released by the Nigerian Nurses and Midwifery Council of Nigeria. The revised guidelines for requesting verification of certificate for nurses and midwives states that a non-refundable fee per application shall be paid for verification to foreign boards of nursing as specified on the portal. It also mentioned that eligible applicant must have a minimum of 2 years post-qualification experience from the date of issuance of the permanent practicing license, a move these nurses have described as a hindrance to their career progression.
We are nurses licensed by the NMCN. Yes. So, lawfully, we should not be expecting our own regulatory body to refer us back to any head or CMD to give us authorization letter for our own verification. That is totally wrong and an act of human rights violation.
The issue is underemployment of nurses in Nigeria.
Yes.
We have thousands of nurses that are unemployed.
Yes.
You are not employing them, and you don't want them to go and get employment where they want it. What do you want them to do? What we are asking is this: remove the verification circular that you have just released, remove it.
The new verification guidelines was signed by the Registrar of the Council, Dr. Farouk Abubakar. He believes the new guidelines will help retain some of Nigeria's medical talent and provide solutions to Nigeria's medical brain drain. In response to this, the Nigerian nurses are demanding an immediate withdrawal of the circular.
We actually want the Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria to withdraw the circular within 48 hours. We hereby want to let you know that we will be going on national strike, irrespective of whatsoever the condition might have been.
With the outcry from the Nigerian nurses through this protest, it is hoped that the government will listen to their yearnings and make necessary adjustments. In Lagos for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
Isn't this sad and appalling? In a time where Nigeria is indeed grappling with not having enough doctors and nurses, there's a case of brain drain where you have nurses who have, in quotes, jackpot to the international community, and your hospitals are left empty or bereft of professionals. And here you are, we have a new law that stipulates, just as that lady said right there in the report, that after getting certification, they still have to get an approval as well. It's a long journey, Nigeria.
I think the challenge here is for them to get approval to foreign boards, they need to have a 2-year working experience here in Nigeria before they get that approval, and then also that approval also needs to come from a CMD of a hospital where they worked, which they have said is completely wrong, because if they've been certified by the nursing board, then they don't need any CMD or any doctor, because of course CMDs are mostly doctors, to give them another verification, that they've worked. And then also, I think they increased the verification fee from, it used to be maybe 10,000 or 15,000. They increased it to as high as 300,000, for nurses. Those, of course, are the issues. But if you listen to the report well, The reason behind these new laws now is not because they're trying to improve on the quality of life of the Nigerian nurse or improve on the services Nigerian nurses able to give to the Nigerian society. It's mostly to reduce their chances of leaving the country. It's to frustrate the efforts of the Nigerian nurse to leave Nigeria and work elsewhere. That's it. There's no other reason. If you listen to the report and look at the details of this new directive, there's no other reason. And the challenge is that I get the whole idea of, you were to reduce the brain drain and some of all of that. But there's a reason for the brain drain. Nigerian nurses are some of the poorest paid in the whole health care space here in Nigeria. I know certain dentists earn more, optometrists earn more, doctors earn more, lab scientists maybe not really though. But Nigerian nurses have always complained about pay, and they've always made mention of these things. So these are the issues that they are dealing with as workers here in Nigeria, and that's the reason that they find work outside Nigeria. And we've repeatedly said that that's not the way to tackle brain drain. Give them more favorable working conditions, give them better pay. And I mean, look at the lady who died in the elevator. What has happened to that case? Nothing.
There has been no updates on that story up until date.
What we continue to do every time that there's complaints by people in Nigeria is look out for new laws to frustrate them further and to tie them down. I mean, the Buhari's administration, there were many discussions about brain drain, and the steps to curb the brain drain were not to improve on the working conditions of these people, but to find new laws and push out new legislation to tie them down here so they can't leave the country, and it's not going to work. But anyway,
it's a tough conversation.
Yeah. We hope that we can have someone from the NMCN join us, or from the Nigerian Nurses Council join us, and we can have an extended conversation and understand further what this is about. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we of course continue this morning on Breakfast Central.
Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. The rising insecurity in Nigeria has given citizens, including you and I, genuine cause for concern, especially as the ruling political elite pay lip service to what is a dangerous trend that is already generating social upheaval. It is on this ground that there are calls on the members of the National Assembly to take their constitutional responsibility much more seriously and show leadership in matters that affect ordinary Nigerians. Much as we appreciate the cosmetic approach of summoning security chiefs to their chambers for briefing each time there are cases of killings and kidnappings, it is also important for the lawmakers to go beyond the rhetorics and take legislative measures to check what is becoming a national emergency and, of course, embarrassment.
Now, while some may say that President Bola Tinubu over the weekend lauded the sacrifices of the armed forces to keep the country safe, promising the federal government's continued support while also charging the military to intensify its fight against insurgency and insecurity, the truth still remains that innocent lives are being kidnapped and taken, some even killed after ransoms are paid, and government cannot just be issuing statements with no action to back them up. And of course, let's share with you some of the things that we know so far. Nigerians have expressed dissatisfaction deeply with the current state of insecurity across the country. In different parts of the country, the Katsina State Governor, of course, Diko Rada, says also about a week ago that he is a target by bandits and communities should protect themselves henceforth. We also have seen the Nigerian Army call for similar support that was given to the Super Eagles in the just concluded AFCON. They say, support us like you support the Super Eagles. And transport buses, two of them were attacked in recent days. Passengers, of course, were kidnapped. There was a video that went viral all over social media. And we, of course, in the last few weeks or months, we've heard of stories where kidnappers go from house to house to pick up victims, mostly in the Federal Capital Territory, and we're hoping it's not becoming the norm. The opposition party has also called for President Tinubu to step down if he can't address security challenges in the country. And we're also seeing the possibility that there would be mass protests spread across different states, demanding, of course, that the government addresses security challenges in the country. And just to quickly add, in the National Assembly, Ned Nwoko, if you have been following that story, has been calling for Nigerians to be able to bear arms to protect themselves. So it's one of the things that we're going to be talking about this morning on Breakfast Central.
Anyway, joining us now to discuss further on the state of insecurity, bedeviling the country's security expert and managing director of PR24 Risk Management Consulting, Onyekachi Adekoya, joins us here this morning. Thanks for joining us, Onyekachi.
Thank you for having me.
Let's quickly get your summation of the current insecurity state in Nigeria. You've seen what we know and what the current average Nigerian is thinking about insecurity. You've taken a look at the current state of insecurity in Nigeria. How would you put it together in summation? Is there a possibility that we're going to get out of this, or do you think we are in for this?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I would say that incrementally, since 1999, we've had a sustained surge in the cases of insecurity. 1999 would have been the issues with the struggle for power, which led significantly to proliferation of weapons, usage of touts, criminal armed groups by different political actors. One of the fallout of the way we did politics in 1999 is eventually Boko Haram, which were then acting as ECOMOG boys. Of course, the killing of Yusuf and how that morphed into all that. There are these current Sheila boys also in Adamawa who are on the same trajectory. Then you talk again about the issue of the Niger Delta, and then you look at the surging kidnap at a time in the southeast. Then you then had the Bakassi boys, and all that. So all I'm saying is, without sounding like Vladimir Putin going on a on a 30 minutes rant, is that there's a systemic problem with how we approach insecurity in Nigeria, or how we approach security. What we should be focused rather more on is on public safety and public order. But we keep throwing the military at the problem. The military are to go in, do a surgical operation, and leave. Once they pull out, the hydra-headed nature of the problem we face then shows itself. And then the military needs to also come in again. And so that's the back and forth we have been seeing. There is no sustainable approach to security. So if you ask my assessment of insecurity, yes, I heard and we are very reactive in Nigeria. Insecurity has not grown worse. It has been on the upward trajectory since 1999. Okay, and what we're just saying is it's doing what it normally does. It's like when we talk about climate change, the climate changes. But when we talk about insecurity in Nigeria, it gets worse regardless of who is in power because of so many factors. Nigeria of 1999 is not Nigeria of 2024. Population is about 200 and approaching 30 million as we speak. We have a highly diverse, highly dynamic society. You have centrifugal forces, the way we play our politics. We have issues in the Sahel. We have the unitaristic system of security that we operate that allows government security forces, that causes them to remain flat-footed. So I give the analogy that our security apparatus is like a 70-year-old man chasing a 20-year-old man who is in his prime. There's no way you'll catch up. So it's not about charging the army or, like you said, inviting the security chiefs. All the noise we make, or the chief of army start doing press up and they play to, only for 2 months later, then another strike occurs. Like I always say, it's we almost will always come back to this conversation until we change our approach to security. We will continue to discuss the symptoms, and all we are saying today, are just symptoms of a problem, which may not have even started in 1999, probably started somewhere around 1975, when we finally then had a unitary system of government fully established in Nigeria, which then robbed the regions of their own police, going back to when the regions even had a native police, putting too much burden on a central police, and it cannot work. As it is now, even the Nigerian army is not safe in the society. Every other day, army officers are kidnapped, ambushed, and killed. So this is the size of the problem that we have. The army is not safe. The police themselves are not safe. You are complaining about your own safety. The people who are supposed to safeguard you are not safe. Do you see the color of the problem?
Yeah. There is, of course, a new NSA. I just want to understand, clearly what these roles and the effect that these, roles should have, on making security decisions, advice to Mr. President. There's a new NSA, Noel Ribadu. He, of course, was in France with the president on holiday. There's, of course, new service chiefs. Are these persons in any way relevant in the whole conversation? If we continue to change these, persons every 2 weeks, will anything change, or is it just a waste of time?
Good question. The NSA has a lot of work, and so he's firstly an advisor to the president on security. Secondly, he is a national security coordinator for the intelligence agencies. His primary area of focus is intelligence, overseeing the DIA, the NIA, and the DSS. He is what you call the Constitution doesn't necessarily recognize NSA. It recognizes the National Security Coordinator. So his role is to coordinate the 3 major intelligence agencies and not to retain command. The successive installation of retired military generals, they want to have command, they want to have operations, no. The role of the NSA is policy, strategy, coordination. I saw that the NSA put out a circular purportedly asking paramilitary agencies to desist from certain camouflage. That's even an aberration. That's a loss of focus, with profound respect. We campaign for a non-military person because you don't need a military person there. Yeah. We are not even yet in a state of war, despite the fact that we have raging insecurity problem. The NSA should not even be heard. He should just be there advising the president on matters of intelligence. If you look at the agency he has responsibility for, DSS. DSS has a station officer in all the 774 local governments in Nigeria. So we don't have a problem of intelligence. We have intelligence. Yeah. We have the NIA. What's the size of our foreign focus? We are more African-centric. We have the resources. What's the hostility from Africa? There is strategic competition between Nigeria and Kenya and South Africa and maybe Algeria. And now we've modeled up the pond a bit. We now have problem with the Sahel Alliance. Yes. You see, so anyway, we don't have a problem bigger than what the NIA can do. But the NIA is supposed to checkmate any threat that is coming to us from the outside. The DSS is supposed to deal with all threats from the inside. The DIA has their own agency. Of course, that has to do with national defense and national security posture. So that's the primary role of the NSA, not to police the military. As a matter of fact, he cannot, because he's an advisor. They are chiefs. Yeah. He's not even a cabinet member. So there are a number of aberrations that we complain about. And, the NSA should be there advising on policy and strategy. One of the advice you should be giving the president that was opposed is to say, Mr. President, the federal government has no business with internal security. Give this responsibility over to the state governor. Let us facilitate a workshop between the federal government and the subnationals on the conversation on how to improve security at the local community level. Organize workshops, symposium, come up with white papers, position papers, all that. Help, with the drafting of inputs into drafting of different national security laws. and oversee certain things. But now the NSA the office is somewhat hijacked because every agency must submit personnel. You have the military, the Navy, the Air Force, the police. They have officers working at the NSA. It's now become a very big marketplace. Yeah. And not a marketplace per se, but so many conversations that are broadening the scope of what they should be doing. That should be a specialist agency, charged with coordination of intelligence and advising the president on matters of national security.
Not necessarily being on holiday in France.
Well, you cannot say he was on holiday if the commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is moving and he details the NSA to move with him. France is a major power in the world.
No, I'm only just stressing, how, when we
it's
say
a
things
perception.
like this as Nigerians, exactly.
If you say he was,
just.
and sometimes in international diplomacy, you get more done sometimes, not at a very formal setting. So France has certain technology that we may be interested in. Again, there are some issues that are not clear to me why the president is more in France, than in the UK, but I'm not the president, so maybe he has his considerations. But if you see the president moving and certain officers are moving with him, then it must then be that beyond the optics of looking like a holiday, there are other conversations going on.
I totally agree, and I'm sorry that this is taking time. There are just certain things, and I might be wrong, but there are just certain things that Nigerians shouldn't just see. It just makes you look unserious.
Like what?
The video of the president watching the game, the NSA greeting him, saying a nice goal, sir. Some of all those things. It just makes you look like you don't understand what's at stake. And I'm not discrediting the fact that they could really be on top of the matter, and maybe they went to France for some high tech, secret. All those ones are possible. But I know, that public perception is also very important, with tackling these things. And nobody wants to see things like that and believe that you are really, really serious.
And that's not even peculiar to Nigeria. Remember Boris Johnson during the height of COVID was partying.
Exactly.
You had a certain Scandinavian prime minister who was also clubbing. We've seen people in the US having some rubbish in the Senate building. So some things happen in politics, but we have not said. So the issue of the NSA greeting the president, well, he's an appointee of the president, and then presidents with such presidential powers as our president are almost like emperors.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's why the drive is more on the standing on the mandate.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's look at this scoring state that we find ourselves. Just last week, two transport vehicles known to transport Nigerians from one state to another state safely and secure. We saw them being ambushed. The drivers killed and the people taken. Of course, ransom is next. I'd like you to please quickly touch on this. Very key questions. In short, going through our messages, we see that the most important questions Nigerians are asking are these two. One, why is it that the kidnappers are not being able or are not tracked down using the BVN? It's a question you've heard many times, but of course, I'm sure everybody wants to hear it again. Like maybe another security expert will put it in clear perspective. Why is it that the kidnappers are not being tracked using the BVN or NIN so they can actually be apprehended and arrested? That's one. Two, Nigerians also want to know, in this fight of insecurity, is it not high time that Nigerians go for state policing?
No, I'll start from the last one.
All right.
State policing, we're overflogging the issue. We are far past the time for state policing. The reason why we've not gotten state policing, at least as I know, and as reported by a member of the Federal House of Assembly, was that then President Buhari tried to get the police to be also at the state level. To change that section of the Constitution, you need the State House of Assembly to also pass a resolution. On that matter, the governors, as we understand, instructed their House of Assembly not to vote because they claim paucity of funds was the issue. Well, we have removed subsidy. What you have to share at FAC is now very interesting. So why don't we go back to the issue of state police? To show you that the governors are the problem, and that's why I'm saying that, we've listened to, when you say you want to listen to a security expert, you bring a retired major general, you bring a retired police officer. You think they are security experts. They may be experts, but not in industrial security, not in public safety. Do you understand? The state side of security, there's a public side of security. When I say state side, it may be government to government, country to country side of security. That even borders around the realms of international diplomacy. And then you then deal with the military and the projection of force and the protection of the territorial integrity of the state. There is a public order side. That's where the police will come in. And then there's the industrial side. If the GDP, for example, the private sector contributes to about over 85% of the GDP, that's a very important sector of the society. So public order, industrial security must have a handshake for you to have economic development. The experts there in society that we want to listen to are the people in public order, industrial security, dealing with issues that concern society. But we bring in the military. To a carpenter, every problem requires a nail and a hammer. So they just tell you, oh, don't do state police. If you do state police, the governors will become emperor. Excuse me, the president is also an emperor. I mean, whatever you complain that the state governors would do, the federal government has been proven to do the same thing and far worse. What are the issues? Come back to your earlier statement. The legislatures to put on their thinking cap and think through the problem and come up with laws. What laws are needed, most importantly, for the state police to thrive? Weapons classification. Firstly, we are tired of seeing police officers with assault rifles. Those weapons are very dangerous. You don't put them in the midst of people. Class their weapons and limit it to only Berettas or service pistols, whatever you can do. That's for the state police. Limit the number of tactical squads that they can have, so that if the first set of police reacts to the scene, they can call in their tactical squad. If it's something they cannot quell, then you bring in the federal police. Look at the way the federal police is structured. It's structured without mentality. Nigeria has Mopo Squadron, if I can remember correctly, about 79 of them across the 36 states plus the FCT in this country. Those Mopo Squadron are there as anti-riots and quick response forces. Yeah. They are there till today. What are we using them for? So if you had the state police with limited weaponry, who first would act as a force multiplier to those tactical squads, having their own tactical squads. So you give the would-be attacker, we talk about insecurity, concentric layer to security. You cross the first line, state police. You cross the next line, state tactical SWAT teams. You cross the next line, federal armed response team. You cross the next line, then the military. But in this country, we do first what we should do last. And once you cross that gap, you don't give the police ample opportunity to do the work of the police.
I mean, but in the interest of time, yes. There's also obviously the case of funding, because the states have to, now be responsible for the full funding, with regards to infrastructure for these things to run. And these are states that can't even run refuse collection by themselves. There's how many states in Nigeria are able to fully run environmental cleaning for themselves? Not very many. I mean, Lagos State is doing well enough. I want to believe that. But leave Lagos State. There's many of them. People have to hire private individuals to clear their refuse. So is that the same state that wants to fully fund its police force to handle itself? That's one. And then I just want you to add to that. We quickly respond to that. How many states, Kebbi, Edo, everybody. And then Ned Woko arguing that Nigerians should arm themselves. Quickly also share your thoughts on that one.
Nigerians can arm themselves. The Constitution provides for that. And the approving and licensing authority for you to arm yourself is the State Commissioner of Police in every state. So that's there. That's in the Constitution. But you are limited to certain class of weapons. Yeah. Majorly shotguns, double barrel, or ordained guns. You can have that. So there's nothing to talk about there.
There's no assault rifles.
You cannot have assault rifles. And Nigeria will not be the first. UK has its own gun laws and every other thing. So what the UK has is a stab problem, not a gun problem. The US has a gun problem. Okay, so there are arguments for and against. But you see, that's not the problem. The problem is we're failing the area of public safety.
Yeah.
We're failing the area of policing. We don't have state police. We therefore overburden the federal police. As a commissioner of police in a state, Lagos State, for example, your work is cut out for you, let alone federating 774 local governments in Nigeria, overseeing almost 1,500 police formations across the country, sitting in FCT, at the beck and call of the commander-in-chief. Most of us forget that most of these service chiefs are more political.
Yeah.
Politicians, if I may say, than actual, being on the ground running the ops. Most times it's the DIG ops or the AC ops that is running operations, because these chiefs have to be at the beck and call of the political class. The bigger problem is that, unfortunately, I'm a Nigerian, we are not being led by the best of us. When you talk about the governor's funding, go to Maiduguri, for example. The civilian JTF, as I understand, are paid somewhere around 20,000 a month. You give these people a gun and you pay them 20,000 a month. According to the report, some of them are not even paid at all. And they are told that they are volunteer. Get an investigative journalist to investigate how much Amoteco are being paid a month. You are shocked. Find out how much the army and the police are being paid themselves. Find out, and I saw you did a reel of logistics, so you can see what, as I say, the color of our problem. Find out the monthly allocation for each of the divisions across the federation for petrol, for vehicle maintenance. Let's even say at the very least, each division should have minimum 2 vehicles. Find out the last time the police did a major capital expenditure across the federation. Without the state government and their security trust funds, security will collapse in this country. So we do a lot of white elephant painting over the problem. The problem is endemic, it is systemic. And that's why you are seeing the failures, because we are not going to the core of at the core of the issues is that we don't have the capability and the capacity to respond proactively to the problems, to lay out the threats before us, and to create a roadmap and implement that roadmap to achieving public order towards economic prosperity and economic development. So all we do now is that you appoint an IG, he knows he's termed.
Yeah.
Soldier comes, soldier go. The barracks will remain. You can't kill yourself.
He bans roadblock, he withdraws, police from
you go back, you go front.
Anyway,
it's all the same.
go.
I mean, if not because of time, this conversation is one that I would like to continue and carry on. Most importantly, not answering our question on the NIN, and of course,
no, that's an issue with Nigeria generally. We just collect data, we silo data in different agencies. We don't have a national center. The penetration of technology in Nigeria is not where it should be. The people themselves who drive policy on technology are not tech savvy. So you can talk about NIN, BVN, all you want, and God knows they may introduce some other thing tomorrow. But we don't know what to do with data. That's the problem. The problem is not the data is there. What are you doing with the data? And that's why when they put, I think Dr. Tunji as Minister of, he has the understanding, but the next roadblock he will meet is where you understand when they say culture eats strategy for breakfast. He's going to receive the shock of his life because being a technocrat, being a business person, and then coming into public sector and public service, you'll be shocked. Remember the Minister of Works, he received a shocker. First they say you are not Emperor of Ebonyi.
Ebonyi, yeah.
You are a federal minister. And so they put him in his place.
Of course.
And
after locking the gates.
Yes, and they judge. And his temperature has come down a bit. Now he's facing the contractors. So culture is a problem. The only person ultimately that can change the culture of the service is the president. And the president is not in his prime.
Well, all right, we need to go.
Interesting conversation, I would say. We look forward to have you back, hopefully, so we can further dissect Nigeria's insecurity and, of course, you could say security architecture. It's been a fantastic 1 hour so far, so good. Let's quickly bring to you a recap of what we have discussed this hour going into the second hour here on Breakfast Central.
Yes, we did, of course, speak about Nigeria and the rising insecurity challenges. We just got off that conversation now. Of course, continuing to x-ray what needs to be done. Nurses also protest new NMCN verification guidelines. We hope to expand on that also. This morning, Nigeria Customs Service intercept elephant tusk in Cross River State, something we're going to be focusing on in the second half, and also in the news this morning. But coming up on Breakfast Central this morning.
Coming up next, President Tinubu insists on improving Nigeria's food production. We'll take a look at that and programs to watch later today. That's another thing that we will like to present to you, so you can keep watch. Plus, coming up next, right now, newspaper front pages. Stay with us. The front pages of the papers is up next, and we want to take a look at what the dailies are saying. We do have our guest joining us, publisher, the Niche newspaper, and of course, a very, very astute analyst, Ikechukwu Emechi. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Always my pleasure.
All right, so let's start off with our very first paper this morning, and there you have it, This Nigeria, Know the Truth. Probe Wigwe's death. Rivers Reps Caucus urges U.S. and Nigeria Isiokpo community declared 7-day mourning, and that was the same community that he had gone to and assured them that they're going to have the best school in Nigeria and Africa. I mean, watching that video, you cannot but have goosebumps to say, wow, you know, life, so sad. But then again, I wouldn't want our guests to dwell on that yet. Let's go to the main course or the meal. Emefiele approved $6.2 million payment for foreign election observers, says CBN director. Court declines to hear ex-minister, and of course, we'll look at this story. Let's start off with this story first. When the news broke yesterday, the court was in session, and then of course the CBN director, who was in Abuja, was called in, and questions were asked. And one thing that shocked me was this money was approved in cash. Cash. What's your take when you got a hold of this story?
Well, we are yet to hear all that transpired under Emefiele. It is good that the revelations are coming out. My only problem with that is that it seems as if Emefiele was the person who ran the government. The government was that of Muhammadu Buhari.
Yes.
And all this noise about Emefiele did this, Emefiele did that, in as much as every other person who did something untoward should be brought to book, should be made to answer, to explain, to give us explanations. But what went wrong under Buhari was not just because of Emefiele. Who is talking about Sirica and the, and the Nigerian air thing? Who is talking about the former Attorney General, Malami, and all the things that happened, even the cases that he unilaterally withdrew from the cause and transferred from the EFCC to his own office. So there are so much happened under President Muhammadu Buhari, and I have argued this. Any other country that is serious will also question Muhammadu Buhari. But we seem to have an unwritten law in this country that no president, no matter how egregious your crimes in office were, that the moment you're elected president, you have become above the law. But we have countries, even in the United States, where Donald Trump, a former president, is in court facing charges, criminal.
That's even too far. Jacob Zuma has been to and fro the courtroom,
Because two former South Korean presidents have been jailed.
Yes.
I did an article some time ago on, there are well over 40 former presidents who have been tried and jailed. So why is it that no Nigerian president is brought to say, account for your stewardship? Because what happened under Buhari was simply mind-boggling. It was criminal, the way they ran this country and ran it aground. So Emefiele did this, Emefiele did that, fine. If Emefiele committed any crime, he must be made to answer. But that will only be just a fraction of what happened under Muhammadu Buhari. And until, and I have said so, and until Muhammad Buhari is brought to account for his stewardship, we are only playing.
Yeah. And if you read the article well enough, or the news report well enough, I think it was stated there that it was approved by the president and the SGF.
Of course, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so it's not like Emefiele, by himself took $6.2 million. And
Emefiele, look, no matter how reckless, unless we are also saying that Buhari ceded his powers, which in itself should be a crime, because he was elected president of Nigeria. And every other thing that happened in Nigeria during that period happened under his watch. It is just like the Naira redesign policy that some people are trying to say it was Emefiele. Buhari didn't know anything about it. When Buhari himself had come out twice to say, I approved this.
Yeah.
So, look, APC, I think Nigeria can do with less of this propaganda and lies. Let us face the real issues. And the real issues is that Nigeria is in a mess. And that mess, whether Oshomole was saying yesterday that Buhari that should be blamed, fine. But whether it is Buhari or what Tinubu has been able to do or not do in the last 8 months, the truth of the matter is that we are dealing with APC administration, APC-run government. If APC under Buhari was every day telling us about 16 years of PDP, why should we not be talking about
8 years?
8 years of APC.
Yeah.
How come that now people are trying to remove the political party from the equation and talking about Buhari, Tinubu? This is APC.
Yeah, and then in 2027, somebody would tell us about 16 years of APC, as their reason for not being able to perform either. 75 billion, of course, the remaining story, the 75 billion naira COVID-19 expenditure documents worthless. Reps Committee tackles Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investments, insists on submission of proper documents or refund alleged mismanaged money. I've read this somewhere before that if we at any point do a proper analysis of the funds that have been stolen from Nigeria's Commonwealth in the last 10, 15, 20 years, it might be the biggest heist in world history. I don't even, maybe, there's other things that are going on in other parts of the world. Let's take a call. Good morning. Morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Good morning.
Yes, we can hear you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
I can hear you. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
My name is Bob. I'm coming from my state.
All right, go on. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I wish to thank you, Cesar, for their insight on the burning issues in the country. I want to let people know that Nigeria should remember that Buhari was a president of this country and equally a minister of petroleum. He never gave account until today he has not given account as a minister and the president. And we are watching. And we are clapping the hands and saying our problem. They created this problem we are suffering today. Now, within a week of this subsidy removal, Tinubu told us the billions of naira that have been recruited into Nigerian posts Now, how many months now after subsidy removal? We are still suffering more than before. Now, in Nigerians should come up. Take the power. We gave this power to them. We should not be watching. On a very short note, we are highly. The poor masses are suffering. Those of us public servants, no payment, no increase. And look at nothing. If you go to buy something in the market today, go in the next minute, the price will change. What are we talking about? Is this what we're bargaining for? We are not happy. If the president is not capable of handling this country, they are talking about the meeting. They talk about Abacha. They want those ones that are gone. They can't talk about themselves. What is happening? We're not happy. Thank you very much, and we're happy for your list.
All right. Thank you. We're going to take a few more. We have to rush through the time that we have. Let's see what else we can find in other newspapers this morning. We just rush through 2 or 3 stories. On The Guardian, 113.8 million undocumented Nigerians raise doubts on population size. CBN informs courts of $6.2 million released for 2023 poll. Abduction, father of slain Anambra lawyer slumps and dies. And also NLC pegs wage against Naira depreciation amid calls for urgent action against hunger and hardship. In the interest of time, let's quickly go to our guest this morning. Quickly speak on the NLC, the idea of a minimum wage, the possibility of an increased minimum wage. There was a rumor that Joe Ajero was talking about a million naira minimum wage. I think that has been dispelled already. They say he didn't say anything like that. But, you know, what are the possibilities of a minimum wage? What figures do you think would make sense? Can Nigeria even afford an increased minimum wage at this point? Or is there other things that we should be maybe directing our focus on, or focus toward, rather?
Joe is my friend, and I must admit, I think what Labour is trying to do, and unfortunately, Joe is operating under a system and a government that knows how to use propaganda and confuse the people. But I don't think the problem actually lies with how much money is spared. If you bring down the cost of living, if people can send their children to school, if people can pay for their health bills, how much is in your pocket? If what is in your pocket is able to sort out your problems, because even if you say, assuming without now considering that Joe actually asked for 1 million, which he did not, but even if it is that Joe asked for 1 million as minimum wage, it is neither here nor there, because of course hyperinflation will come in, and you will get to a stage where 1 million, you find out that it is more or less valueless, because every other person will also add to the cost of doing business in the country. I think the government must get a handle on the economy. The government must get a handle on the economy. The 2 policies that President Tinubu said should get him a mention in the Guinness World Records are the 2 policies that have dragged this country into this mud. Removal of fuel subsidy and floating of the Naira, without considering what the fundamentals of the economy were at the time and still are now. Now, for those who are saying subsidy removal is something that must be done, and of course now they go back to saying that the 3 of the presidential candidates, it will be Atiku Abubakar and Tinubu, did promise that they were going to remove fuel subsidy. What they are not saying is how and what are the modalities for implementation. There is no country that I know of, even Western democracies, the biggest economies, that are not into energy subsidy. They subsidize energy one way or the other. You can't wake up in the Donald Trump, Joe Biden can't wake up tomorrow morning and increase the pump price of gas in the United States. He will fail the election.
Yeah.
He will fail the election. Nobody does that.
So why is that possible then? You know, is it still a propaganda thing? Because if it can be so easily done in Nigeria and change Nigerians' lives completely. This is not the lives that Nigerians were living 1 year ago. Without any fear that you lose the election, without any fear of any repercussions, without any fear that anybody will challenge you. We're going to hear from Victor. Good morning.
Hello. Morning.
Morning. Where are you calling from?
Victor from.
All right, Victor. Go ahead.
Are you with me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. I want to chip in some points from what we are discussing this morning. Our guests already made some points. The issue of everybody said they will remove subsidy. The three major presidential candidates, everybody agreed. But nobody agreed that on 29 May, they will announce the removal of subsidy. Nobody makes such comment. Nobody mentioned the particular year or month. It can take 2 years extra for you to remove fuel subsidy. 3 years, making sure that you have put in place necessary enabling environments to carry out those policies. But for you to start on the program of 29 and announce without even going into the government, without even looking into the available on that subsidy, without knowing everything. Tinubu has not been the president of Nigeria, so he doesn't know anything about the subsidy. So it's a very wrong decision to make. The issue of, we have many issues in Nigeria. The dollar rate, and they're not doing anything. All these, they are lip services. Me and you know the truth. If you are having a goods in your shop, even to sell it, you don't need to sell, you need to keep it. Because if you sell it, before the money goes to your bank and you want to buy again, you have to go for borrow. But with your profits you made in that business, you have to go back for borrowing. So if you remove what you sold in your shop to drink water, you are eating your potential capital, because those profits you think that you have earned to drink water, if you go back to pick that item from your source, they will tell you both your profit and your capital, your initial capital cannot purchase that particular item. So what are we doing? Why are we complaining that people are adding money? Even though you call your company today, they tell you this is 1 naira. You sold. Tomorrow, call the same company. They tell you it's 2 naira, because everybody is operating on how they can, the power of their purchase.
Yeah. All right, Victor, thanks for calling. Remember to our viewers, the phones are open. You could always be a part of the conversation. They're going to be on your screen in a bit. You could also tweet at News Central TV. Mr. Rich, please go ahead.
Yeah. So you don't wake up in the morning, just like Victor said, on the inauguration day, and that fuel subsidy is gone, was not even part of the inaugural speech that the president, that was prepared for him. There are weighty policies of government that you don't treat whimsically. And they were asking me, how come in other climes, policies or even pronouncements of politicians may deny them victory. But in Nigeria, the answer is simple, my brother. Elections are not won or lost in Nigeria because of the votes that the people cast
in the ballot
out there. Elections are rigged. Because if people know that they will be judged based on what they have been able to do in office, they'll be more careful. They are so reckless because they know that elections are not free and fair. And you know, when we say this, there is no basis for Buhari to have won a second term in 2019 if elections were to be on what you were able to accomplish.
Yeah.
But he won. There is no basis for APC winning election in 2023 if it is based on what the party was able to accomplish. But APC won. And there's also the possibility that in 2027, APC will win, because they will not win because of the votes that you and I will go there to cast. They will win willy-nilly, because that is the way elections are won in Nigeria. So, and that's why they govern in ways that they don't give a damn what the people feel.
Yeah, all right. Let's quickly squeeze in the next newspaper. I think the Daily Trust or the Punch, one of them should come in next. We can share some of the stories that we have there. I think let's take the Daily Trust this morning. It says here, there is hardship in the land, says the Emir of Kano. This, of course, is popular information. Everybody knows that. From Kano to Ebonyi State, to Delta State, to the Middle Belt, there's hardship everywhere. Things would get better, the president's wife says.
She had visited a man in the visitation. Yeah. During the visitation, she made that statement as well.
Yeah.
You know.
It also says, Nigeria almost becoming Venezuela, PDP governors are saying. Federal government resolves January salary delay, Lords workers' patience, and of course, a petrol price hit 700 in Sokoto, Maiduguri. Someone from Akwa Ibom, Tyrus, good morning.
Tyrus, can you hear us?
Yeah, morning. Go ahead, please.
Contribute. Go ahead.
I'm from Akwa Ibom State.
Hi, please.
The government, for him to stand in the inaugural day and just remove subsidy without sitting down and call the people or organize people to know what is going on. Today now you can see what we are passing through. Jonathan came in, the dollar to naira was where Obasanjo lived for them and Yaradua till he left that place. And even the Buhari they are talking about, it is not too much rapid the way things is. Tomorrow you go to market, they will say that dollar has gone up, rice is like this, gari is like this. So many things are happening, and people very soon now, people will leave their home and went back to the government house and start protesting, and they will see what happened in France some time ago. The president came out and insert kind of what will we call, and said that there is a program that they're supposed to do, and the whole nation stands still for long, and they have to reverse it because we didn't see where the money of subsidy removal is going. We didn't know what is going on. People are just perishing. Every day people are dying because there is no money. So we should talk to government. Let them do something about it. If it's to revitalize all the companies so that people will get jobs, then many applicants are everywhere. The company are sacking people. Michelin has gone. Dunlop Berlin are gone. So many companies are left. Where is the money of the subsidy that they are removed? Let them use it and bring those companies back so that people get jobs. God bless you.
For calling. Quickly, you could respond to one of them or one or two on the Daily Trust this morning. Of course, the Emir in Kano saying there's hardship in the land. Those are parts of Nigeria that have the obviously highest levels of poverty in northern Nigeria. So I can imagine what the realities would be today when things are 10, 20, maybe even 100 times worse than they were a year ago. And of course, the president's wife saying that things would get better if you just hold on just a little bit. PDP governors, of course, saying that Nigeria is almost becoming Venezuela.
The Emir of Kano, of course, said the obvious. The president's wife visited Kano yesterday. I think they said she went to commission a building in a university built by the wife of the former head of state, Mariam Abacha, and all that. Of course, he used that to pay a courtesy call on the Emir of Kano. And the Emir said, go and tell your husband, we have channels of communications, but you are the most effective channel of communication. So go back and tell Mr. President, your husband, that Nigerians are suffering. And of course, the Emir was saying the obvious. And of course, what did the president's wife say? Let us be hopeful. Renewed hope. 8 months after, it is renewed suffering. Being hopeful, of course, we can't be hopeful because we are human beings. A human being without hope is almost dead. But hope must be predicated on something. There are actions that must be taken. It is like Pastor Adeboye saying in Kaduna that Nigerians, that the problems of Nigeria are now spiritual, and Nigerians should pray. When did it get to this level? And what is it that Pastor Adeboye thinks he is doing, thinks he's talking about? Spiritual how? Look, some of the most productive nations in this world, Japan, China are almost atheists in their disposition. They are not Christian countries. Even the United States that says in God and we trust. We trust. How many of their presidents actually go to church? So the problem of Nigeria is not all these things that people are parroting. It is a failure of leadership. And Nigerians are failing to hold the feet of their leaders to the fire. As long as we continue cutting some slacks for these leaders, as long as we continue making excuses for them, nothing will change. And the Adeboyes of this world, the Oshomoles of this world are simply making excuses for leadership failure.
Yeah, because they're not really, being victims of, the failure of leadership. Pastor Adeboye is definitely not, experiencing what the average Nigerian is experiencing. His life has not in any way dramatically changed, because of the policies of the new government. I don't expect that he will speak different. But when you say hold the feet of the leaders to the fire, you already mentioned that elections would almost not make a difference, because that's the reality of elections in Nigeria. So in which other ways can Nigerians then remind President Tinubu that, it's not working?
That elections have not always made a difference does not mean that it must continue that way. Part of the holding of feet to this is that when people rig themselves into power, you don't allow that, you protest. But beyond that, now that they are in power, Nigerians must take the streets. A caller mentioned what happened in France last time. People were in the streets. In what year was that? Egyptians were in the streets for weeks, for months, until President Mubarak resigned. Nigerians must be able to say enough is enough and protest policies of government, pronouncements of those in leadership positions that they know won't augur well for the man on the street. And unless and until you do that, they'll be taking you for granted. Look, the other day a memo leaked that the 37-member tripartite committee requested for 1.8 billion naira
to inaugurate themselves.
The president approved 500 million. Everybody saw it, and people go on social media, oh, no. And that will be the end. You wake up in the morning and fuel price, I can tell you.
We've seen it there. Petrol price, 700 in Sokoto and Maiduguri now. It's coming closer.
In fact, if you go to my village, I'm from Imo State, they have been buying fuel in my village in the last 3-4 months for more than 700 naira. It's a no-brainer. So, and people will simply go and buy and go back and be murmuring in their bedrooms.
Keypad warriors.
So it sounds very much, like the Nigerian spirit is broken, and it's broken so badly by many reasons that they never are able to. Because I've seen online, that there is a day to pray or curse Mahmoud Yakubu. I saw that on Twitter this morning, that they were picking one day of the week so that everybody would pray and shower curses on Mahmoud Yakubu. Which
February 25th.
February 25th.
Which this just didn't make a lot of sense, because that has zero effect on anything that you're trying to achieve as a Nigerian. Then there's a part where it sounds like the spirit is so broken that you can never really get people to come together and say, this would not stand. This election had too many irregularities, it would not stand. Bear in mind that there are people who, of course, voted for that candidate, and they will tell you, no, that the election will stand. This is the candidate, and he won fair and square. So there's too many of all these reasons why you would almost never get the number of people to be like France. I mean, during NSAS, there were counter-protests during NSAS, and it's not because people didn't understand.
I also feel that there's also the case of the protest being hijacked. Well, that's a different story entirely. But let's quickly take our last paper. Because
this is not calling for a protest. I'm just
no. We're just looking at it very constructively. I mean, as journalists, most importantly, the Punch has that story. Wigwe, federal government, US begin talks as officials test copters wreckage. We can see there a few governors and, of course, bank executives. Not forgetting to a very important personalities visited the parents of the late Wigwe as well. So let's talk about Wigwe. I think that's our final story for today. Let's anchor on that note.
Well, let me first say my very, very deep condolences to the Wigwe family. Like President Bola Tinubu said, this is tragedy beyond comprehension. And you can't imagine it. Man, wife, son, and friends dying in one fell swoop. It is tragedy that you can't even wish your worst enemies. How to recover from this, I don't know how this is a cut that is so deep that for life the Wigwe family will have to deal with it. So my condolences. But that's life for you. You can't. There are two things. When you come and when you go, you don't determine them.
Yeah.
And as Christians, we are told whether it is good or bad, you don't even question God. In any case, even if you question God, it won't bring back the dead. The serious thing about death is finality. If it is that Herbert traveled and you are hopeful that in the next, even if it is 10 years,
he'll be back.
You're sure that he will come back.
He will come back. You can go and say, okay, let us wait 10 years. But he's gone, he's gone. So I think what we have to do as people, as those who love him, is to ensure that all those legacies, all those things he championed while he was here with us, that they don't go to ruins. the Wigwe University, and all the other things that he engaged in. But this is one that you can't.
I agree.
But sit back and say, no, you can't explain it.
Yeah.
You can't explain it.
It's a huge loss, for the banking sector, for Nigeria, for Africa. I think, you can just sense that the mood across the nation has just been really, really calm.
Yeah.
In the last 48 hours. It's really, really hurtful. But we need to go. Thank you very much, Ikechukwu Amechi, for stopping by and for sharing your thoughts with us on these stories. And thanks to all our people who called in from different parts of the country also. We appreciate your time and, of course, your contributions this morning. We'll take a short break. When we come back, of course, what are Nigerians saying? That's what we're going to be getting right into right next. Stay with us.
All right, so it's that time for us to take a look at what Nigerians are saying, and that's exactly what we're going to do right away. And I have my mobile device here with me, handy, and it's time to go straight to the social media space and find out what stories Nigerians are reacting to. The very first story I'm going to tell you about that Nigerians are talking about is the story of a man known as Onyeka Ogbu. Yes, you must have heard of that name. I'm sure Nigerians did. He's a deputy director, branch operations at the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. Now, yesterday he was at the court. Yes, he was. And that's where he made some expose. Yes, he spoke deeply about what transpired at the CBN. It was all about the $6.230 million that was disbursed to international election observers during the 2023 general elections. Can you imagine that? That's the figure he said was disbursed. Now, Nigerians were not really reacting that much until they heard that that money actually was signed off and approved by the central bank governor. And of course, the president was somehow related into that transaction. But then again, how did Nigerians take that story of the former central bank governor, that man then known as Godwin Emefiele? Let's go straight to the tweets and see what happened from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Don't forget, we're going to all the social media spaces. This one says, the party that was supposed to fight corruption is much more like a shock if you look at other messages preceding this one. And he was like, this is the same party, and look at what happened under its leadership. Well, that's the first tweet. Let's take a look at another tweet. This one actually away from that one. This one says $6.5 million payment for foreign election observers. And with this, economy will not crash. And he uses his own hashtag, which he created, hashtag stop crying, ask questions. Facility enough. That's what he says. And that's coming from Olarinwaju. Olarinwaju is not really happy with the story, just as many Nigerians are not. And we're going to tell you what our percentage ratings actually looks like. Another one, this one is from Omo Iyaticha. And he says the Nigerian government severely paid $6.2 million to EU, US, and other foreign election observers. No wonder the foreign election observers present were able to witness the voting irregularities and failed to discredit the elections. Quite sad, and I can tell you. So from our back room, we're able to deduce clearly having the ratings, which we will in subsequent editions of What Nigerians Said. It shows with a huge margin that Nigerians are not happy with this story and what happened, especially what transpired with the CBN governor during his time, the former CBN governor during his time with the elections, and that funds that was indeed shared, or you'd say that was paid to election observers from the US, the EU, and the likes. Away from that story now, let's look at what Nigerians are reacting to again. This time, it's the aftermath of the AFCON 2023 after the Super Eagles of Nigeria are going to make the next story right about now. Now, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, away from Emefiele, also became one of the biggest stories that Nigerians did react to. Now, do recall that something did take place. It had to do with, Nigeria not winning and going to second place. And then again, Somebody was trolled from yesterday. I am talking about Alex Iwobi. Very sad situation. Our research and findings show that, of course, Tunde Ednot tweeted and asked what Nigerians thought about Alex Iwobi, which sparked the conversation. And many Nigerians on that trajectory started attacking the player, and then this led to cyber bullying. And I can tell you that Nigerians are reacting to that story as well. Well, let's start off first with this very first tweet. This one says, the best team won. Congratulations to Ivorians. This government doesn't deserve a cup, period. I mean, is it about the government or is it about Nigerians who win? But they say since Nigerians didn't win, the government does not deserve the cup. Anyway, that's the reaction from I Am Finest J. Let's take a look at another tweet how Nigerians are reacting. And this one says, you people criticizing and hassling Alexander Iwobi, what exactly are your problems? Alex Iwobi, 80% of you never gave the team a chance of getting to the final even. He is not the reason your politicians don't rate you, nor the reason kidnapping is rife in the land. Tossers. This is from Calvin Emeka Onwuka. And we agree with Calvin because Alex Iwobi has had close to about 75, 76 caps for Nigeria. He scored more than 10 goals for the Super Eagles. Nigeria was not rated to get to the finals, you recall. Yes, when we started, nobody gave Osei Pesero a chance, and yet they got to the finals, and then he was being trolled. Even his own big uncle, Austin Jeje Okocha, had to put up a post to say, come on, guys, this is not fair. We shouldn't do this. And we're saying no to trollers this morning as well in Breakfast Central. Not on Alex Iwobi. That's someone who gave his all. Look at this. Aisha Yusufu also jumped on it. And Aisha Yusufu says, dear Nigerians doing this. Yes, all of you are talking to you. Direct your anger to what is your problem. And stop making Alex Iwobi your scapegoat. And I think that captures every single thing. Alex Iwobi has nothing to do with you trolling him up to the point that he had to delete all the pictures and images on his account, and I'll just let only one stay. And then there are statements that he's probably never going to play for Nigeria anymore, and so on and so forth. Everybody laughing, talking, taking jabs at the player. Come on, take note. If we win, we win together, and if we lose together. Don't be sore loser. That's what people are saying. So that's one reaction everybody's having concerning Alex Iwobi. Let's quickly see one more reaction. This one, I can tell you Nigerians are reacting to this. It's got to do with Ghana, it's got to do with Ivory Coast, and it's got to do with others who actually are talking about Nigeria. Yes. Because Nigeria did not win, the other African countries are saying, yes, we are happy they did not win, so let's go at Nigeria, the giant of Africa, in quotes, so-called. And the very first tweet is from Ghana. The Ghanaians are indeed taking a jab, and even a Nigerian ex-international had to also hide on his own to ensure that he can run away from the social media attacks. Well, this is what the tweets possibly look like. This one is from Victor Boniface. I'm sure you know who Victor Boniface is, of course, a Nigerian player. Unfortunately, he couldn't go for this tournament due to injury. But he says, now so I did hide from my Ghana brothers. So, and you can see 2 dogs and a cat hiding just behind the wall because Nigeria lost. So you need to just hide because, in quotes, the mouth making was too much. Let's take a look at another tweet very quickly before we look at a very impressive video put up by one person. This Leo Colomore is actually from Ivory Coast. He says, hi, it's Ellie. And the Ivorian asks, Ellie who? And Nigeria replies, eliminated. With a big laugh on the face. We get the jokes, guys. It's all about the banter, so it's fine. And very last one, again, coming from Hell's Kitchen, says, where are my Nigerian brothers? Do you guys remember when the Black Stars of Ghana made you destroy your 2 million naira stadium in Abuja? And the image captures what really took place in that qualifier. Remember how Ghana ensured Nigeria were beaten? Qualifying became tough, and that's exactly what we see there on the tweet. Very, very, very funny. If you go online, Nigerians are reacting to this. And there's a video to actually hit back at Ghana for taking a jab at Nigerians. Take a look at this video, and we'll go straight to what it says.
Your economy is so bad that you didn't see this coming. Also, you don't have stable electricity. and your president is not president. And
Do you hear something? No, not really. Charlie, you did trespass. This place is for medalists only.
I'm a medalist. I mean, I won it in 1982. 1982. We have light in our country. It's not fair now.
I mean, kudos to the man putting that together in that footage. But that's how Nigerians are reacting from the former CBN governor and a $6.2 million allegedly shared money to election observers, down to AFCON reactions, other African countries taking a jab at Nigeria, and of course, the attack, cyberbullying on Alex Iwobi, which we truly condemn. Please take note that all tweets and of course, all reactions are sole responsibility, or better still, are from the reactions that's taken on social media. It has nothing to do with News Central. We're just ensuring that we take you to what the people are saying, how Nigerians are reacting, what Nigerians are saying. Osage, you've seen everything.
Yeah. Alex Iwobi, I mean, it's very shameful, but I think if we're being honest, there's always a fair amount of, as much as we have, the calm heads and those who have sense, there's also a fair amount of those who, don't have sense. Well, don't have sense, and so, it happens. Unfortunately, he's the one being picked on. But of course, Bukayo Saka, if you remember, was also picked on heavily by English fans after they were, I'm not sure what championship they were eliminated from. So it happens every now and then in sports. It's just that, we should always speak against it. It's not the first time. We should just always speak against it. And of course, we've spoken about Gordon Emefiele already. Our guest earlier, made mention of the fact that it seems like there's an, unspoken rule to not question the, president. We always pick one person, make that person the scapegoat of corruption of the previous administration, and just continue to hound the person and ignore the fact that they had people who they were, answering to. So that's pretty much the same thing happening in the Gordon Emefiele situation. And I am hoping that Nigerians can see through the deceit, that seems to be hanging in there. But that's what Nigerians are saying. Thank you very much for, of course, continuing to be a very, very interesting bunch of people on social media. It's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you very much for staying with us all through Tuesday morning's edition of Breakfast Central. We'll be back here again tomorrow morning. It's bye from me. I am Osaugi Ogbawa.
And I'm Joe Hansen. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow. Make sure you tune in.